Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Hey, Miguel Torres back here on the Lights Out podcast. Chris Lytle, hopefully on the way, but the boss is off in bare knuckle land. And Mike and I, the MMA detective, Mike Davis, we are tasked with another deep dive, and we've got a fascinating one. Something we don't often get to do. An active fighter, just adds to the fun of the interview. And we got Neil Magny, who fights out of Chicago, but is originally a New Yorker. Neil, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
Very glad to have you. Mike, I know you booked him, so I'm going to let you take over.
Neil, you and Miguel are from New York. How long were you there until you moved to Northwest Indiana?
So I spent like the first, I guess, third of my life now. Geez, getting older. The first third of my life in New York City. So I lived there until I was like 12, 13 years old or so. Then moved to the south suburbs of Chicago.
Okay, what south suburb of Chicago did you move to?
So at the time, my grandma was living in South Holland, Illinois. So I ended up moving to New York City to go live with my grandmother, spend some time with her there. Okay,
so about 12, 13 years. So you did high school. Where at?
Yep, so I went to Thornwood High School over in South Holland, Illinois. Immediately after high school, left for the Army, came back, went to school down at SIUE down in Southern Illinois.
Okay, so did you wrestle in high school?
Yeah, so I wrestled in high school, wrestled 1 year in college, and then at that point I was like, nah, forget this, I'm ready to fight. It was pretty locked in that like wrestling for me was over at that point by the time I got to college wrestling.
Okay, but you did 7 years in the military. See, like your story it's interesting, but it's not really put together. Like, so you did 7 years in the military, correct?
Yes, yeah, the 7 years in the military. Spent 3 years down at SIUE. I was there to graduate and move on from there. Moved back up north by near Chicago to try to be on Chicago Police Academy, and then had opportunity to go out to the Ultimate Fighter, and it was pretty much history from there.
So it was either the Ultimate Fighter or CPD. Obviously, you made the right move. Okay.
But you're 13 years old. You're from Flatbush, Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you probably went to the Midwest. Probably had a family member taking care of you, getting you out of the New York, hood kind of thing, and taking you out there. A lot of street fights. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that transition when you were young?
Surprisingly, it wasn't as many as you would think. Like, my mom was she was pretty big on trying to keep us sheltered. Like, she knew what New York City was like. So for her, it was like for us to stay safe, quote unquote, was to keep us in the house. So like my mom did whatever it took to keep me and my brothers in the house and just off the street, so to speak. So like literally when she would go off to work, do what she had to do, she would pretty much try to make sure we were like in the house 24/7. But with that being said, I grew up with 4 brothers and little sisters, so there's plenty of roughhousing going on inside the house as well.
Nice. I think we found a superhero here. We got Neil Magny.
For sure. So Neil, you also hung out in Northwest Indiana quite a bit. You went to Miguel Torres' gym. Was that the first gym you went to?
Yeah, absolutely. So being in Thornwood High School, like Northwest, like for guys that don't know, Northwest Indiana and like the South Side of Chicago, literally like a 15-minute drive from one another. Like I can literally cross over to Indiana within a few minutes of driving or whatever. So my junior year of high school, my football coach had gotten us a membership at World's Gym for us to go ahead and lift weights during the summer and that kind of thing to stay active. And during that time, Miguel Torres was renting studio space out of that World's Gym to run his martial arts program. And I remember walking in there a few times and like looking over, like, man, what are those guys doing? It looks kind of fun. But I never really like jumped into it right away. And finally, after about a week or two, like, man, I'm going to try it out. So I remember walking in there, just kind of like poking around, asking questions like, so what is it you guys are doing? What's going on here? And he explained to me that he was running a jiu-jitsu program and a kickboxing program, and that he was a mixed martial arts fighter. It was just like, that sounds amazing. I think I want to partake in this. So that was my first introduction to like mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, and that kind of thing. So Miguel kind of let me stop in, take a couple of classes that while he was at Rose Gym, and that kind of like started my my journey for martial arts, so to speak. I just kept kind of going back. And by the time I was getting ready to graduate high school to move on, it was something I was really, really passionate about pursuing. And as I started doing it more and more, I got good at it. So I was like, all right, screw it, why not? Let's roll this, see how far I can take it.
So in Northwest Indiana, there was also some like backyard fighting, Crazy Boys fight team. And I know you socialized with a couple of them. Did you ever partake in the backyard fights?
No, I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, I was so involved with sports at the time, like especially in high school. Like I was literally a year-round athlete. I would go from football to wrestling to track year-round. So as much as I would love to have partaken in like some of the backyard brawls that they were doing back then, I kind of had to like quote unquote stay healthy in order to compete on the high school sports teams.
So Miguel, it was like the first like glimpse of viral backyard fighting. It was all organized. They had a champion. They wore gloves. I mean, it was pretty wild.
Yeah.
All right. So
you know what's a pretty cool thing too, though, is like, you're at Gold's Gym, lifting weights for football. I imagine you're like a wide receiver or something like that, right?
Yeah, wide receiver, tight end.
So you're doing your thing in there, you get interested, and it so happens to be Miguel Torres. That's not a bad first introduction to the sport. You know what I mean? Talk a little bit about Miguel, like how, because he's a little guy, but he had to impress you at some point. So why don't we take a minute to give him some props?
Yeah, man, like everything about Miguel was just intriguing. Just like knowing his backstory from coming up in East Chicago, and like seeing how he took care of his family and people around him, that kind of thing, was super motivating for me. And then like to see the level of success that he's gotten over the years was definitely motivating as well. Like when I was training with Miguel and the guys at his gym, at the one point Miguel was among the list for pound for pound best guys in the world. I mean, the guy was at one point like 40-1 or something like that. Like he was amazing when it came to mixed martial arts, and being a smaller guy, you seen him go out there and just like do his thing. And it wasn't that he was the most athletic, he wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the most like skilled in the sense that like he would have this natural talent, but the guy was just so hardworking that he'll go out there and earn whatever he got. So when you see him work his way through the regional circuit and make his way to WC to become a world champion, that kind of thing, it wasn't luck by any means. It was him actually putting his feet to the pavement day by day and just kind of grinding it out and making it happen. And for me, that was motivating because like in football, I wasn't necessarily the fastest, but I was always showing up ready to work and had the ambition to win. So see a guy like Miguel Torres make it as far as he did, come from Chicago, Indiana, I was like, cool, if he can make it, I can definitely make it as well. So I was definitely a motivating factor for me early on.
Cool. Your fight career, all right, so for those of you guys that don't know Miguel, or in terms of having business dealings with him, he will not let somebody fight unless like he gives his seal of approval on them. And his seal of approval is one of the most difficult things to get. Like it's almost like a decent kind of weathered pro fighter, like that type of ability is where he expects you to be your first amateur fight. Like it's not an easy process to cross over to the fight team, which brings your first fight. Like I kept getting a lot of questions about this. August 7, 2010, you're at C3 Fights in Newkirk, Oklahoma against Noland, Norwood. Were you with Torres at this time? Or were you living somewhere else?
So during that time, I was actually living in Southern Illinois because I was going to school at SIUE. And during that time, I was also training at Hit Squad. So what I was doing is when I was down there, I was training at Hit Squad pretty much Monday through Thursday. And then Friday, I didn't have classes. So Friday, I pretty much take a train back up to Chicago and be back at my grandma's house and that kind of thing. And I'll go back and train Miguel pretty much Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. And then hop on a train on Sunday, go back down to school again Monday through Thursday. And then like I'll be home all throughout the summer. I train Miguel and the guys up there again. So like I had like this dual citizenship, so to speak, where I was like part of his squad. I was also part of Miguel Torres' gym as well. So I was like, it was actually pretty fortunate because like training at Hit Squad and training Miguel, they couldn't be any more of the opposite. Like you look at a guy like Matt Hughes, he's all about like closing the distance, getting the fight to the ground, doing ground and pound, and controlling your opponent from the top. New guy like Miguel, the guy is a guy that's going to take risks standing up as far as like doing these crazy strikes, getting into these firefights on the feet. And if you happen to take him down from on his back, he's still going to fight and probably finish you or beat you up pretty good from his back. So getting this perspective of like, all right, how do I fight from my back? How do I fight from the top position from both Matthews and Miguel Torres? Kind of mold me to this like fighter that's able to do both, so to speak. Like I was comfortable wherever the fight went. If I can go out there and push your face against my opponent, bring him to the mat, I'd find a way to win. If I were to go against a wrestler and he put me on my back, I'll find a way to win. So I was kind of fortunate to get that skill set training where I got both perspectives on how to compete in mixed martial arts.
So you were taking fights with like Mark Fiore and his squad then, correct?
Yeah, I was taking fights with Mike Fiore and his squad, and I'll come back to Chicago. Like, hey, we got a team on this. It would look like, bro, you have to wait and fight for me. But I was like, I know, but I'm really eager to fight in there. So like, I mean, he didn't like the fact that I would like bump with him sometimes because and it wasn't because he was like doing malicious. He was just a guy that cared so much. He didn't want you to like take matchups and take fights that like you weren't prepared for, you weren't trained for. So he wanted to like kind of have like a watchful eye over you, so to speak. But at that time, I mean, 19, 20 years old, 20 years old, like I was so eager to get to the point that he was at that I was willing to take whatever fight it took to get there. And sometimes it probably wasn't the best decision, but I was willing to do it.
So with Nolan Norwood, when you walked into the arena that day, did you think that from here, this point on, this is what your life is going to revolve around for the next 20 years?
So for me, the biggest changing point for me where I realized like, all right, cool, I can do it, make a career out of this. I was fortunate to train the guys up at his squad, and at Miguel's gym. But going down to his squad, there were guys that are already in the UFC that are competing in the UFC actively or in Strikeforce active at the time. So I had guys like Matt Beach, Brian Foster, Matt Hughes, Robbie Lawler, like all these guys who are like seasoned vets in mixed martial arts and fight for these big organizations. Houston Alexander, guys like that. And I can remember when I first walked into that gym, being a 19-year-old kid, like, even though I had some skill sets under me from being like training Miguel for a couple of years and like my Army Combatants experience and all that other stuff, I had some experience on my belt. These guys were literally whooping my ass when I walked into that gym. So like the first year, it was just like, all right, cool. Like I'm competitive against the guys that are quote unquote my peers. Like I can do well against the other amateurs. I can do well against the low level pros, but these high level pros that were already in UFC, I was really struggling against those guys. So once it got to the point that I was getting competitive against those guys, I was like, oh yeah, I have a chance at this. I can make a career out of this sport. And for me, it was all about like making a run for it and making it happen. So I was willing to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime in order to get to the UFC.
What do you remember about your first fight?
Not much, to be honest with you. Like, I remember it was down in Oklahoma somewhere, but like, for me, it was more so just checking the boxes. Like, my first couple of fights for me were, it was just more so just checking the box. Like, I knew where I could be as far as like being a fighter in the UFC. So for me, these fights weren't necessarily an opportunity for me to go out there and like quote unquote get tested. It was more so just checking the box in order to get where I wanted to go. So for me to get to the UFC, for example, I tried out for the Ultimate Fighter 4 times before I finally made it on there and got my chance to compete on the Ultimate Fighter. And each time they were like, you need more fights, you need more experience, you need more of this, you need more of that. So when I would get that feedback from the dead matchmaker, Joe Silva and Dana White, like, yeah, you need this, you need that. It was more so up to me to go out there and get those things. So when someone needed more experience, like, I didn't care who I was fighting or where I was fighting. I would literally go to SureDog.com, look up upcoming events, and email every single promoter that had an event coming up, asking on their card. So whether it was Oklahoma, Indiana, Wisconsin, New York, California, I would literally email everyone trying to get on their cards just in order to get a fight, get a win, check the box off and get back and get to the UFC. That was my only concern. So as far as who the opponent was, as far as like their skill sets and things like that, I didn't think twice about it. I mean, to take a step further, there were some times where like because I was a reservist or active or a National Guard member, there were times where I had like my duty on the weekend where I had to like do military service on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. And I remember like having fights in like Wisconsin or something where I would literally go to duty on a Friday in my military uniform, do what I had to do that day, drive to Wisconsin, weigh in, drive back that very same night in order to be in formation next morning at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Do I have to do all day as far as my military service was concerned? Immediately get off work, drive back to Wisconsin, fight, and then turn around and drive back to Illinois and be in formation on Sunday like nothing happened. So for me, it was all about like pretty much checking the box and get to where I was trying to go.
All right. So your third fight, you beat Nolan Norwood by armbar. You fight Nate Marquardt. You go to a decision, and I'm with. At the time, I was doing an event called Cutthroat MMA. November 6, 2010. Miguel Torres says, "Hey, dude, I got this guy. He's green. He's green. He's got 2 fights. Why don't we give him a shot?" And on the other side, I've got Velcro Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that is obviously a very esteemed jiu-jitsu academy here in the Chicagoland area. And he's like, yeah, we got a guy, Lawrence Dunning, black belt. These are brown and black belts. They're like, we can't get him fights. Nobody will fight him. But we're not trying to get him killed. I said, well, Miguel Torres, he says he's got a green guy that's 2-0. Do you remember fighting Lawrence Dunning?
Yeah, I remember that fight very vividly.
It was your first time at home, too.
Yeah, it was my first fight in like an area where like my close family friends could make it. Like I can remember and it was at the Hammond Civic Center too. So like it was like literally right in my backyard, so to speak.
Legendary venue.
Yeah, that was the first time I actually had like close family and friends that were able to like make it to one of my fights. Before then, I was fighting in Missouri, fighting in Oklahoma, just all over the place. So like for me, it was just like, oh wow, I'll get to fight at home with the home team, so to speak. And even when I would fight in Oklahoma and that kind of thing, I was training with the guys at his squad and on the road with those guys. But it didn't feel like home necessarily. It didn't feel like the guys that I started with. It wasn't the close camaraderie that I had with guys like Miguel, Anthony Gomez, Bill Johnson, all those guys. Like it didn't feel like my friends, my close family was there kind of thing. So for me, fighting at the Hammond Civic Center close to home was like one of the best fights that I've had. Like, and I literally took the energy into the fight with me. So going into the fight, I knew he was a black belt, but there wasn't much film on him or anything like that to pretty much game plan from there. And once we got into the cage, I was just like, cool, Miguel's in my corner, Andre's in my corner, my friends are here, my family here. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna win. And I literally remember just like I literally threw everything at this guy. I threw some wrestling, I threw some jiu-jitsu, I threw some ground and pound, I threw some striking. Like at the end of the fight, there's this picture where I remember his face just covered in blood, and I'm just on top, just raining away. And it's just, you see the look of defeat on his face, just kind of like, I'm like, please just end this fight, dude. It's over with. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And that was probably one of my best fights early on. Like, I vividly remember that moment, that experience, everything about it. Like, even my little cousins were there. And I was one of the only fights they were ever able to go to of mine. So that was definitely a great experience for me.
So, Miguel, you try to be as honest as possible. So Miguel Torres tells me this guy's green. Velko and Neil had a hellacious, like, just back and forth first round. And then, like, the last minute, Neil just kept getting stronger. And I remember, like, talking to whoever was next to me going, dude, this guy keeps getting stronger. Like, like that dump isn't happening. And in the second round, he puts Lawrence's nose on the other side of his head where there's blood everywhere. And I'm just like, man, just give me the insurance form. Like, before he even left the ring, as the coach was leaving the ring, I handed him the insurance form because I knew, like, it was and then we were like paying the coach going, man, he told me he was green. And then, like, my matchmaker, I'm like, we got Miguel Torres. Like, his green guys are like, like purple brown belts.
Well, he said it. He threw some jiu-jitsu, he threw some wrestling, he threw some ground and pound, he threw some striking. It's like, well, not to simplify things, but what else is there?
Yeah. And that was the biggest thing, like, just understanding, like, in meets comfort, like, you can do those particular things. Like, some guys go into fights like, oh, I can only stand with this guy, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. Where that fight against Lawrence Dunning, I didn't care where the fight went. I was so confident, regardless of what happened in that fight, that I was to find a way to win it. And sure enough, that's just how it played out.
I have a question just about your mindset. So, like, the fight's starting to go your way. Do you think at some point maybe you could have finished him, but you wanted to try something else out? Were you?
Oh, he finished him.
get to that level. Well, I'm, earlier in the fight, like, was there something, or did you decide to try out all the different techniques? Is it something where it was easy for you that, on
No,
that day?
finishing fight is always high on the agenda. I mean, even with training Miguel, like, that's one of the things he always instilled in us. Like he literally would find a way to finish the fight, whether it was a jiu-jitsu match, whether it was an MMA fight, whatever you're doing, he always, like, encouraged us to find a way to finish the fight or whatever. So my mind, like, looking for the finish was definitely, like, something I was always looking forward to. Like, I mean, for the first couple fights, I was always disappointed. Like, oh, man, I didn't perform as well as I did. Like, what do you mean? You dominated that guy for 3 rounds. Like, yeah, but I didn't finish him. Like, you know what I mean? So early on, it definitely, like, would bother me that the fights would play out that way. And like I said, having a guy who's experienced with Miguel will let you know, like, yeah, man, like, I have 60 fights under my belt. I have yet to have the perfect fight. You know what I mean? Like, I have an idea of how I should play out in my mind, but I have yet to go out there and perform the way I thought the fight would in my mind. So the idea of always looking for the finish, always trying to get the fight over with or whatever is always there. But the reality of it is, it's just more difficult to do sometimes or others or whatever.
The thing is, like, after this fight, like, we're all kind of like, our heads are spinning. Like, man, we got Torres on this one. Like, he got us, green in his eyes, but nobody else's. And he legitimately thinks you're green at this point. 2 weeks later, you travel again and you fight the division, like a college wrestler in Darion Terry. Like, you were.
Which is funny because fast forward 5-6 years later, Darion Terry is actually one of the training partners and teammates of my current wrestling coach, Lisa Bowling. So it's just weird to see how small of a world it is. Like, back then, it was the same thing. Like Alex said, I was trying to check the boxes to get to the UFC. I didn't care who had to fight. So when the opportunity came up for me to fight in Missouri 2 weeks later, like, all right, sign me up, I'm there. So I didn't even know he was that good a wrestler until I got into the fight. Like, wow, this guy's really shooting well and like getting me to the ground or whatever. But it's just the same mindset, just finding a way to win and finding a way to push through and just trying to, like, make it happen, so to speak. And I don't know, it pays out more often than not for me.
And the Hit Squad guys cornered you in that fight, am I correct?
Yeah, I was on his squad for that one, yeah.
So you had Torres, Brian Johnston, Anthony Gomez cornering you 2 weeks prior with Lauren Stunning. Now you got the Hit Squad guys fighting against Darion Terry. You knock him, you stop him in the 3rd round. And then you fight with the HFC April 9th, 2011, Kevin Nowaczyk. Kevin Nowaczyk is 7-0. He's getting a lot of decisions on his record, but he's made a name for himself regionally. Like, did you have any concerns going into that fight? Because that, in my opinion, was a huge fight, at least within the region.
Yeah, so that was a fight that Ricci was hugging to with the pros from HFC about. And, like, going into that fight, like, it was the Nowaczyk fight was definitely one of those fights that I should have took more caution in, as far as, like, wow, I'm fighting a real tough guy. But, like, I never let that thought cross my mind as far as, like, who I was getting ready to fight. I just knew, like, your goal is to get to the UFC, and the way to get there is to win fights. Go out there and win fights. So when the Nowaczyk fight came up, there wasn't much doubt there. It was just like, before I read through the email, I was responding, yes, I'll be there. like I was already taking the fight. And it ended up being a decision, but man, it was a really close fight. And it was the first time I had a fight that was that close. And like I said, Nowaczyk is a very tough dude. Like, he made it to regional circuit. He's fought at 170, 205, 85. Like, he's a super tough dude. And that was the first time I actually faced some adversity as far as, like, fighting an opponent that was, like, putting me in danger, so to speak. I was like, wow, this is not a fun feeling. Like, that was a super close fight, but somehow found a way to get done, and that fight ended up going the whole distance, but still did enough to get the win in that one.
Yeah, it was the first time you were a nail. You've always been a hammer up until this point.
Yeah, it was definitely an uncomfortable feeling, but, like, for me, those experiences just kind of, like, bring out the best of you. I know some people use that term, like, either win or you lose, but I hate that term. Like, you either win or you lose. There's no, like, you learned a lesson to fight. My goal was to go out there and learn a lesson. My goal is to go out there and win. So if you go out there and you lose the fight, for me, it's never like, oh, boo-hoo, it's not a loss, it's a lesson. Like, no, it's a loss and it fucking sucks. What do you do with that loss or whatever? And then grow from there. So in that Nowaczyk fight, I was fortunate where I was able to win the fight, but because it was so close or whatever, it really forced me to go back to drawing board and find ways to get better and improve from there, because it let me know, like, all right, cool, I know you want to get to the UFC, but you're struggling to fight a little bit, and you have some ways to go to get there. So that really forced me to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and push things a little bit further.
So, Miguel, there used to be this organization called Combat USA, and they were trying to spread throughout the Midwest and have like tournaments and then have like a national champion, kind of like a Golden Gloves. And the amount of like production and care that they put into the event was like second to none. They did a great job, but there was like a caveat. It was like, if you win a tournament, you win $5,000, but if you compete in a tournament, you lose. Did they pay? Did you even have a payday, or was it very little?
It was very little. I mean, I think when I was like, especially back in the day, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, like you were making thousands in your first couple of fights anyway. Like you're gonna come $100 if that, if you're lucky. So for me, like I said, it was just more so like checking the box at the end. Like so, Combat USA was cool because like it had that big pot at the end. Like, oh, cool. If I win this tournament, I can get thousands. Like I haven't made thousands fighting before. Like you know what I mean? So like it was definitely exciting to make that much in a fight, but you have to win like 3-4 fights or something like that in order to get to there. So it was a little more difficult than you would think or whatever to get to that big prize. But yeah, we did get paid eventually. It wasn't the like high bells and whistles you would think with a promotion that had that much production behind them. But like I said, it was MMA in the mid 2000s is how it was everywhere.
So your first opponent for Combat USA was Quartilus Stitt, who actually trained at Hit Squad.
Yeah.
So was there a falling out that you two had? Because I had heard that they requested this fight.
Yeah, so at the end of Hit Squad, for me, like I knew, like once I graduated from SIUE, I was to go back to Chicago. I knew in the back of my mind that was the goal, and I made it very clear to everyone there. I communicated to everyone, like, hey, when I get done, when I finish school, I'm going back up north. I'm not sticking around St. Louis. I'm not sticking around Southern Illinois. As soon as I graduate, I'm heading back up north. So for a couple of coaches, when it came time to go back up north, they kind of felt like I owed them a bit more of an explanation for my departure. It was like, oh, I should have sat down and talked to them. And maybe I should have, like, you know what I mean? At the time, I was like 22, 23. Maybe I should have talked to them more about it and told them what I was going to do. But, like, in my mind, I knew, like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I'm fighting to get to the UFC. I'm down here because I'm going to school here. When I'm done with school, I'm going back up north to Chicago. Like that's my plan. Like everyone in the dorms, everyone on team knew that, like, all right, Neil was going to be a police officer in Chicago, working his way through the regional circuit. That was like my plan, my goal, my thing from day one, kind of thing. So when the time came for me to depart from the Hit Squad, some of the coaches kind of felt left out or betrayed, so to speak. Because I remember it was like a Monday practice. It was like, oh, where's Neil? Like, he's usually here 20, 30 minutes early doing something, and he's not here. And the guys are like, he's back in Chicago to mean where he's at. So there was a bit of a miscommunication where the coaches thought I would stick around a lot longer after my college career was over, so to speak. And I was always like clear and open about it, like, hey, after graduation, I'm out. So that misunderstanding as far as like what my plan was after graduation kind of rubbed a few people the wrong way. So when the opportunity came for a Hit Squad guy to fight me, it was just like, oh yeah, we're going to take that fight. We're going to show Neil he made a mistake by going back up north near Chicago. So I was like, cool, I need an opponent. You guys think this is the guy? Send him my way. And that was the best they sent out there, and it was what it was. The fight turned out the way it did.
Was it uncomfortable afterward? Did you communicate with them, or was it just, it is what it is?
No, not at all. I mean, I've been competing like at wrestling, whatever else, for a real long time, and you get heated matches all the time, and it's like always a respectful thing to go over and shake your opponent's hand after a match, after a fight, after whatever it is. So at the end of the fight, you know, I had beaten this guy that they thought was going to beat me, or a guy that they were rooting for against me, kind of thing. It was the same respect I would give any other person who was a stranger. Like, hey man, good fight, thanks for competition, on to the next, kind of thing. So for me, there was no bad blood at all. I went out there. I competed against the guy that they thought was going to beat me. Did my best. It was enough to win the fight, and that was all I needed at that point.
Yeah. You go right back there. Andrew Trace, who, if you look at his record, he's got a phenomenal record. You fought him right here, July 21st, 2011. Was this at 185?
No, it was at 170. You come in the first round, guillotine submission.
Yeah. Is that a rough dog? This was for the $5,000 grand prize too, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the big one. Yeah, I mean, and that fight was interesting. Like, not taking it away from that guy, but like, It's just one of those things that, like, for me, like, I remember going into that fight, like, there was just life was going well. Life was going smooth. Like, all these wins that, like, had this big prize within reach. Like, oh yeah, I'm about to get this $5,000 check. Here we go. It's right there. I'm just gonna go over there and take it. It's mine, kind of thing. So you kind of like start looking past things, so to speak. Start looking like, all right, cool. This is what's next. This is what's next. This is what's next. And for sure, I went out there and I shot for a double. He found the guillotine. He ended the fight. I was like, oh crap, that sucks. like you got the first round guillotine submission finish, and it sucked. I did not like that feeling at all. That first loss was terrible.
I always thought he was. There was a guy that had to have been on the UFC radar based on his record, and he stopped. Where others kept going, such as yourself. You turn it around real quick. Actually, February 11, 2012. Daniel Sandmann, a guy out of Michigan, more of a journeyman than anything. Neil, I think people saw your gas tank in this one. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that fight. It was actually one of the few fights I took at 185, actually. And I remember taking that fight. It was so prior to that, I had gone like a few months, maybe 5-6 months without a fight. And for me, it was frustrating because I was on a roll. I was used to like fighting every other month. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep knocking these fights out, moving forward, to like get to where I need to go to UFC and like have this record and be good to go. So that Daniel Sandmann fight, I remember being in the gym training, and at the time the promoter Danielle walked in and she was like, crap, I just lost my 185er. And she was just there to like give tickets to one of my other teammates that were fighting on that card. And they're like, oh, I'll take the fight. And she's like, Neil, shut up, no you won't. And I was like, yeah, I'll take the fight. She's like, Neil, the fight's a week away. It's at 185. You're not taking this fight. Shut up. I'm like, I'll take the fight. Literally, I can weigh 185. I can fight guy at 185. I'm okay with it. And she's just like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, give me the fight. Like, I would take the fight at 185. So she hesitated, just like, all right, if you want the fight, it's yours. The fight's a week away. I don't think I'll find a replacement opponent for him. So if you want it, take it. So I ended up taking that fight at 185, a week or two notice or whatever it was. Went out there and like, it really showed me that, like, wow, fighting 185 is a lot different, because like I would clinch with this guy and I would try to wrestle this guy, and like the size difference was definitely evident, where he would like outmuscle me in position, so to speak. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna have to like make this a striking battle, just like, and kind of pick this guy apart from the outside or whatever. So I remember just like literally like elbowing, kicking, knee, and doing everything I can to like beat this guy in the striking. And like by the end of round 3, this dude was just like gushing blood everywhere. Like it was like a cut in his eye that was like pulsating. Like every time he would like take a breath, it was just like like blood was just squirting out of his eye from like cutting over the elbow or something like that. And it's just it was a brutal fight, but it was the fight that I needed to get to where I was trying to go. That was like the last fight I fought in a regional circuit before getting my chance to fight for the Ultimate Fighter and eventually fight for the UFC.
What is your cardio routine? Because I mean, the punch stat on that fight, I mean, I wasn't there, but I had been told it was very lopsided, with you throwing hundreds of punches around and just not stopping.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to how Miguel Torres had us train. Like, he never I didn't know what overtraining was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was Miguel just set the standard, and that's what we ran with. Like, we didn't know how to like gauge ourselves or pull back or things like that. I mean, we were sparring 3-4 times a week sometimes. Like, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like, oh yeah, if you did your 3 rounds, you were done. It would pretty much be one guy in the center of the cage, and like if it was 5 guys there, 5 guys rotated on you while the one guy stays in. And then pretty much everyone get their chance to do that. We're doing that 2 or 3 times a week, maybe sometimes 4 times a week. And then we'll finish that and we'll go right into grappling. And then we'll finish grappling, like, all right, cool. We do a weight circuit. Like, we're doing all these like crazy things back then, where we're like, we didn't know what the science was behind it, but we knew like you can't beat hard work, and that's what we're willing to do. We're work our butts off in order to go out there and beat our opponents. And for the most part, it paid off more times than it didn't. So like that was what our regimen was back then. That's all I knew. All I knew was hard work. I didn't understand the idea of like a training schedule that's going to prevent overtraining or anything like that. It was just work your butt off and go chase the results you want. And that's the only way I knew to train mixed martial arts. So for me back then, that's just the way it was. We just kept grinding day in and day out, doing a specific thing that we're going to do, whether we're sparring, or grappling, or wrestling. We just went there and did it for hours.
Yeah. I think you're breathing as well. Like you don't get the dumps. Like you don't get the adrenaline dumps, and you've just got a very controlled way of handling yourself. And are you just like a fear junkie, or does that not even kind of come into play in regards to your decision making?
it's weird. 'Cause I remember being a distance runner when I ran track or whatever. And like for me, like when I was running, it was a way for me to just like kind of be in the moment. Like I'll shut my mind up. There's no thoughts, no things, nothing going on. I'm just like kind of free and I'm running. Like there were times that like I'll just take off running in one direction and look up like, crap, I'm 10 miles away from home. I'm gonna get back home now and have to figure that part out. So like when it came time to go train, it was the same idea. I was like, all right, cool. I walked through the door and like my mind switched off and I'm here working at this particular task. So if it was grappling, I'll pretty much grapple until like we're done. Like and sometimes they're like a grappling price will last 3 hours sometimes. Like literally guys would get off work, we'll meet up at the gym, we'll start training, we'll look at the clock like, damn, we've been for 3 hours. And at this point, like you're so sweaty that like it felt like, you know, you ever been into a bath where you're in there so long and your hands are like pruny? Like it's just like so wrinkly from like sitting in the water. That's how our skin would be after practice. We're just sitting there sweating so much and training so much that like by the time we got done, it's like the whole mat's covered in sweat. The windows are like literally sweating and like fogged up from all the hard work in there. And like your hands are pruny from like sweating so much. And like at that point, you're like, all right, that was a good day. I think we're done training for the day. And we'll turn around and do the same thing again the next morning or whatever. So that was just the only standard I knew when it came to training. It was just like exhaust yourself, empty the gas tank, and then do it again the next day. So when it comes to fighting, that's the only way I know how to do it.
See, you're one of those guys that doesn't have fear. Like you're kind of like a junkie with it. But it stops and begins with fighting. Like are you a motorcycle guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
For contract, I'm not allowed to have one, but there is a motorcycle in my garage that I have access to.
Okay. Because in terms of your outside of the ring activity, there's nothing there. Like you're as clean as they get.
There's something going on in northern Indiana too, though, because what he just described also sounds like those old Duneland workouts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That hard work is bred in the area, and Torres goes back to those days too. It's funny, Torres, he's reminding me, sounds like he's talking about Marco Ruas, and it's Miguel Torres who's like this big, you know, but the man commands respect and he deserves it, you know, very much so. So I'm just drinking it all up and enjoying the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. So he mentioned Doolin. It's Doolin Belitudo. That's for John Colossi, Eddie Wineland, Keith Wisniewski, who's Josh Shockley. Those guys all made UFC appearances. That's where they're from. Miguel Torres, but Steve Colon as well. I mean, it's like that area. If you look at the wrestling in Northwest Indiana, it's actually one of the better regions in the entire country. And it's just a small, hardworking, blue-collar area, which is obviously where you cut your teeth. Let's talk about TUF 16. Let's talk the tryout. You said you tried out 4 times previous. You have enough fights. When were you sure that you had made it? Was there a specific line or question? Talk to us about the tryout.
Yeah, so the first 2 tryouts that I had for the Ultimate Fighter, I got cut both times. It was like the first time I tried out, I had the bare minimum. I had 3 fights. I was 3-0. They're like, yeah, 3-0, decent, but not good enough. We want guys with more experience. The second time I tried out, the same story. This one I was like, I think I was 5-0. And I was like, yeah, we want guys that were a little bit more seasoned in this sport or whatever. And once again, so I went right back to like regional circuit, fight as much as I could, and it came the 3rd time to try out. And at this point, I'm like, all right, cool. They're gonna do a live season with both. What we were understanding was both welterweights and lightweights. It'd be a live season, 16 weeks long, or whatever it was. I'm like, cool, here we go. Here's my chance. And at this point, I make it to the interview process. They're looking over my application. It's like, yeah, this guy's, I don't know, we'll put him on the side. We'll leave him as a maybe. And then for that season, they decided to cut the entire 170 roster and just do 155. So that was another chance to get cut. And then finally, on the 4th time trying out for the Ultimate Fighter, I remember, like, at this point, it's like, dude, like, I tried out 3 times already. Like, this thing is getting to the point that it's frustrating. Like, I have to, like, scramble up enough money to get to Vegas, find a hotel, stay there, do all the stuff. Like, I'm a regional fighter, just got out of college. Like, I don't have this extra funds or maybe, like, just fly in out of Vegas and, like, make this thing happen. I didn't have sponsors. I didn't have any of that. And that crazy stuff. I pretty much just had my basic job that I was working as I was trying to get to the police academy or the UFC, whichever one came first, kind of thing. And I remember this try came out again. I was like, fuck, dude, like, how am I get to Vegas and like make it to this tryout? I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna max out my credit card, book a flight, go out there and do whatever it takes. So I maxed out my credit card, book a flight to Vegas. And I get there, I'm like, all right, well, I have like $100 in cash to like last this whole 3 days that I'm there. So I'm like, well, I don't need a hotel. So I slept at the Las Vegas airport the first night. And I was like, I'll just sleep at the airport, and then I'll wake up in the morning. I'll take a shuttle. And I'll take me to the hotel that the trials are being held at, and then I'll get there, do what I have to do, warm up, and do the interview process again. So I fly in, sleep at the airport, wake up, wash up in the bathroom, hop on the shuttle, and just go to the tryouts. I make to the grappling session, I make to the striking session, and it gets to the point that we're doing the interviews. I'm just like, dude, this is my fourth time here. I don't know what else to do. You guys told me I needed this, told me I needed that. I did everything you asked for. What else I have to do to get to the UFC? And I remember Dana White and Joseph looking at each other like, I think that's it. I think you did it. I think you're in. And I'm just like, wait, what? Like, I'm in the Ultimate Fighter. Like, yeah, I think you were to give it a shot. You're gonna get a chance to fight for the Ultimate Fighter. I'm just like, no freaking way. Like, this is my chance in. I was like at this point I'm excited. I'm like, oh yeah, I paid off finally. I get my chance to go to the Ultimate Fighter or whatever. And from there, it just kind of just took off. It was just like, all right, cool. I made it to Ultimate Fighter. All I gotta do is just train hard, make my way through, and I'll be okay. So like it wasn't like this easy like schedule they gave me either. There was a lot of like, hey, we might be filming on this day, be ready for it. So like once we got home, we didn't know who we were fighting, we didn't know when we were fighting, we didn't know how the structure was gonna be. So you had to like kind of like stay healthy and stay in the mindset where like, oh cool, I can fight in a week, I can fight in a month. I don't know which one is gonna be, but I have to be ready for either one. I can fight a wrestler, I can fight a grappler, I can fight a striker. I'm ready for whatever opponent came my way as well. So like training was interesting because I couldn't like rely on one special or one particular training partner. I had to like mix it up as much as possible. That I can adapt to whatever the fighter was thrown at me when it came time to fight. And I remember I was probably about a week out before we left or so. I remember sparring one of the guys over at Steve Pelosi this time, just to get a different look, different body types. And I remember it wasn't intentional, but I remember keeping this guy in the face. Like literally just like put right to the face, like kicked him in his face. Just like, what the hell? So he take it personal. He comes charging at me and he blasts me in the rib where he like literally dislocated one of my ribs. And at this point, it's like, fuck, like I'm on standby for the Ultimate Fighter. Now I have a busted rib. What am I supposed to do? So I go home. I can like barely get in and out of my car. Like I couldn't take a deep breath or anything else like that. And I'm just sitting there like, fuck, dude, I can't believe I just bruised my rib this close to like I'm fighting for the Ultimate Fighter. So I'm like, leading up to it, all I can do is just pretty much lay there in bed, ice my rib, and like pop ibuprofen. Hopefully I get this like inflammation go down, the swelling go down, and like somehow be able to compete on it. So the time comes to finally go out to Vegas and like do my thing for the Ultimate Fighter. The first 3 days we're there, we're just kind of sitting in the hotel. We get there to give us a quick brief. We're like, hey, we're going to take your cell phone. You guys don't have access to computers or anything. You're going to have to be on weight in 3 days. You're going to be fighting for a chance to get to into the UFC into the Ultimate Fighter house. I'm just like, the hell, what am I supposed to do? So like the same thing. We're in this hotel. There's no phones. There's no. We had TV. There's nothing else we had to do. We're just sitting in the hotel. We're just kind of waiting. So I'm like, well, my rib.
Did you have a roommate?
Or that?
Did you have a roommate?
No, you're by yourself in a hotel room. Like by day 2, a few of us started like peeking our heads out in the hotel lobby or in the hotel hallway to see if there's anyone walking by to like just have interaction with somebody. You know, just like, I'm in this room for 2 days now. I feel like I'm in a hole in jail or something. Like it was just mind-blowing. I'm just like, man, I need to see something or do something. But during that time, it's the same kind of thing. Like I always keep icing my rib and eating ibuprofen to hopefully feel better. So we finally get to the point to like, all right, now we're fighting again in the house, and I get matched up against Frank Camacho. And the first round, he comes down and just
let me set this up real quick. So the TUF 16th elimination round was actually July 31st, 2012. Frank the Crank Camacho. He's 11-2 out of Team Oyama. Obviously a famous like stomping ground at this time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I came out and I'm all bruised up, worried about this rib, how's it gonna feel. And I go out there in the first round, and he literally just beats the crap out of me. It might have been a 10-8 round. He beat the crap out of me, dude. It was a pretty tough first round. I'm just sitting there, just like trying to nurse this rib. And I just remember halfway through. And the other part that you don't know either is you don't know the coaches that you have either for the Ultimate Fighter. So that day they kind of like first pick names out of a hat, like, hey, your team. Nelson, your team this, your team this, your team that. So I just had these random guys coaching me, recording me that day, who knew nothing about me, nothing about my opponent, nothing about.
Wait a minute. You walked in with, it was like 2 or 3 black guys that walked you in.
Yeah,
you didn't know them at all?
Didn't know any of those guys. The first time meeting was that day. Like I'm close to those guys now. I know them well now.
Who were they?
They were Roy Nelson's coaches in down in Vegas.
Oh, okay. Okay, he was on the show. Roy Nelson brought in like Nick and Nate Diaz, like Jake Shields. Like he brought in, he brought in the Cesar Gracie squad.
Yeah, and he brought his coaching staff from Extreme Couture out in Vegas as well. And those guys are all like coaches over Extreme Couture that were kind of running the show. Not running the show for me, but like.
Wait, I apologize. Roy Nelson brought them in. Team Carwin brought his own people in. Okay, I apologize.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. So while we were there, these guys are coaching, have no idea about injuries, no idea about anything else. They're just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're just out there getting the crap beat out of you. And I just remember just thinking to myself, like, damn, dude, like, this is finally my shot to get to UFC, and here I am complaining about a rib or whatever. And I'm just like, it's either now or never. So I just like kind of like flip the switch in the corner. I'm just like, dude, fuck this rib. There's nothing I can do about it now. So just go out there and fight. And I just remember like literally taking it right back to Frank Camacho. And I probably 10-8 him right back in the second round. And we got to a third round, a Sunday victory round, because we both even round one, round two. They're like, all right, that fight needs a third round. So he and I go to the third round. And at this point, we're fighting tooth and nail. Like, whoever wins this fight gets a chance to the Ultimate Fighter House. And fortunately, I was able to get the best of him in that third round and eventually get my chance to fight an Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. JC or Frank Camacho was no joke. That's for sure. I mean, he's California tough, 11-2. You get into the house. August 6, 2012 is your next fight, which is like a week later, and you've got the former TUF 7 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach and Cameron Diffley.
Yeah,
like this guy coached on the Ultimate Fighter. Now he's on the Ultimate Fighter, and he's your next opponent. Was there any like bright lights, big city type thing going on, or were you mentally adjusted?
Oh, I was mentally adjusted. By the time I got to Ultimate Fighter House, that was the easiest thing I've done in my life. I mean, like at that point, I've already been to a war, already been to this. And so like being in the Ultimate Fighter House was the easiest thing I ever did in my life. Like literally, we were locked in a mansion with everything you possibly imagine. Like, hey, someone's bringing you food, someone's bringing you everything you need. All you have to do is sleep, train, eat, and fight. I was like, dude, this is amazing. Like, I have absolutely no worries at all. Like, I don't have a phone, so I don't worry about bills, I don't worry about anything. All I have to worry about is training and fighting. So at that point, it was great. The downside is like I fought to get in the house, and I fought again a week later to advance in the tournament, and I was still dealing with this rib injury. So like I remember telling the coaches on the side, hey, is there any way I can get like a football protection pad or whatever that I can wear underneath my clothes so I can like kind of protect my rib or nurse my rib? And they're like, yeah, we'll try to get to you. So like they sneak me into this like rib protector that I can like wear underneath my clothes and training, whatever. And the entire time when you're at Ultimate Fighter House for the first couple of weeks, I'm just walking around the house with a hoodie on all the time. And guys are like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? It's 100 degrees in the middle of Vegas, in the middle of summer, and this idiot's walking around with a thick black hoodie on all day long. Meanwhile, I was icing my rib the whole time, trying to not let the other guys know how injured I was. I didn't want like the doctors to find out and send me home. I didn't want anything crazy to happen. I was just like, all I gotta do is fight through this. I'll be okay. It's just a rib, we'll be fine. So I get called out to fight the first week. We're there with the rib injury again, fighting a grappler. So I'm just like, oh crap, here we go. So at that point, I pretty much just have to like pretty much ride my bike and I'll strike him the whole time. I just knew I couldn't afford to like get caught in a grappling exchange or rely on me to like move any kind of crazy way, potentially hurt that rib further. So I just kind of played it safe in that fight, so to speak, and just kind of outstruck him.
Yeah. Diffley, I think he was kind of looked at as the favorite walking into the house too.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, he's definitely one of the favorite ones on there. Like he was Nate Diaz's grappling coach. He was one of the coaches on the Ultimate Fighter season pass. So he definitely was one of the favorites on the show for sure.
Yeah, he looked out of place and timid, which was surprising to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it's one thing to like spar and like train with guys, but something else to see a guy to like literally come out in front of you is like, hey, you're standing away what I want, and I'm not like gonna let you take it away from me. That's like the whole nother feeling to bring something out of you.
How about the house? Was there like anybody that rubbed you the wrong way, or like by the 16th season, like you think, like you said, they everything's like a machine. You want vodka, they bring you vodka. You want steak, they bring you steaks. You want So is tension limited in the house, or was there somebody who was just a jerk?
So for the house, like for me, it was easy. Like at that point, I've lived in military barracks for years and that kind of thing. So for me, it was easy. I didn't have any issues at all. The issues started arising when guys started losing. Once guys started losing their fights, they started to find excuses or other ways to make a name for themselves. That's why you had the whole Julian Lane situation, things like that. You had all these guys that like, oh, I already lost my fight. I have nothing else to worry about while I'm in this house. Let me go ahead and start sabotaging somebody else's scene or whatever. And like that part did bother me. Like I remember I got to interaction with what is it, Mike Hill on the show because he had lost the fight and he had already had a built-in excuse like, oh yeah, I lost my fight, but I lost one of the best grapplers out there. And it's like, dude, you lost. Like, I care less just the best grappler, best striker, whatever it may be. You lost the fight and you just like talking about as you lost one of the best guys out there, just like an excuse you're making to try to make the loss a little more understandable. Like, take the fact that you lost and then like go do something about it. But instead, he wants to like throw this whole pity party, like, oh, boo hoo, poor me, I lost one of the best grapplers on the show, and that really bothered me. This guy's like sitting here like asking for a pity party. I'm just like, I don't care about this, dude. Like, I'm still in the tournament. I still have a chance of winning. I still have a chance of like going forward and like getting this contract. I don't want to sit around like eating my dinner and here you are crying about losing to a guy on the show. Like, I can care less about that. If you're gonna go cry, go sit in the hot tub by yourself or something. Just take that attitude away from me, sort of thing. And then he starts looking like, yeah, we're gonna fight. I'm like, no, you're not gonna fight me. I'm gonna be yet another excuse for you to go home and tell your friends, like, oh yeah, I got kicked off the Ultimate Fighter because I got to fight with Neil Magny. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to actually fight me. You want to make me your excuse moving forward. Like, you already have one. You just need another excuse to go home and tell your friends why you didn't make it on the show or whatever. And his attitude really bothered me like that. It really got to the point I was just like, dude, get this guy away from me.
How was it like living with Julian Lane?
Luckily, he was in a different like quarters, house or living quarters than I was, so I didn't really get to interact with him much at all until that one infamous "Let me bang bro" night incident. Like, I had literally very minimal interaction with Julian Lane throughout the 6 weeks of filming.
He's really turned his career around and like used that to his advantage rather than let it define him. Yeah, he's a guy that I think. I mean, he's doing really well in bare knuckle right now. He's doing well. And he's always in exciting fights. I enjoy watching him, and I've met him a few times. Had the pleasure of meeting him. I like the guy. Yeah, I wouldn't want to live with him, but I like the guy.
Yeah. From a distance, yeah, he's great.
yeah, for sure. Bristol Marunde, that's your next opponent. It's September 4th, 2012. Do you think he may have missed weight against Lane? I know there was kind of like a controversy with that.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I'm not too familiar with the incident.
Okay, so he's also your teammate, so it's somebody that you're actively rolling with. That's kind of my issue with your run on the Ultimate Fighter. You had to fight two teammates, so it's like these guys know what to expect.
But the big thing in that whole situation was the lesson we learned within that whole ordeal. Like, I got the short of the stick, was forced to fight two teammates, but at the same time, I had an opportunity to ask exactly who I wanted to fight. And my reaction at the time was like, excuse me. But the cliche answer, like, I'll fight anybody. I'll fight anybody you tell me to, Dana White. And he's like, you'll fight anybody. Cool, well, here, fight your teammate. And I was just like, oh, well, I didn't mean anybody in that sense, anybody from the other team. It's like, no, you said you'll fight anybody, so go ahead, fight your teammate. And like the lesson we learned there was just like, no, dude, if you want something, go out there and take it. Don't be afraid to like call a guy out on the other team that you want to fight, whether it's because you think you can beat this guy or this guy's an easy matchup or this guy's the most difficult matchup, whatever it is, go find that person and go ask for him rather than like leaving up to chance, like, oh yeah, sure, I'll fight whoever you put in front of me kind of thing. And like, I thought I would have learned that lesson then, but no, 2 weeks later, the exact thing happened again. We're sitting in a room, we're getting ready to do the quarterfinal matchups, like, hey, who do you want to fight? And like, my radar was going up. I'm just like, hey, just say this guy or just say that guy. And I'm just like, I'll fight anybody. And he's just like, oh, you haven't learned yet, huh? Cool. You'll fight anybody, you're fighting your teammate again. And I'm just like, crap, dude. Like, here's my chance to actually speak up and get what I wanted, but nope, not the case. So like, lesson learned, like, don't leave it up to chance. Don't like go to cliche answer. If you want something, go out there and ask for it and take it. Don't wait and see what happens.
Yeah,
don't leave it up to a TV production.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I literally could have had my matchup, a favorite matchup. Like, yeah, I want to fight this particular guy, but I chose like oh yeah, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to hurt any feelings. I don't want to call anyone out. So I'm just gonna leave up the chance to say I'll fight anybody. But nah, not anymore. I want to fight this guy for this reason. Let's make it happen.
So Bristol was out of the syndicate. He was 14-9, a veteran of the IFL and Strike Force. I think that your head movement and your way to parry was your key to victory. Mike Ricci was in the semifinals. You're one fight away. He's one of two Canadians. He's 7-2, working out over TriStar. Man, Neil, at this point, like I wasn't watching Ultimate Fighter at this point, but you were on it. I'm like, I got to see it. I didn't see your first two fights, but I'm like, man, I got to tune in. He's a hometown guy. Ricci it was a hard fight to watch.
Yeah, tell me about it. I have to go back and watch it and remember, like, oh, wait, that happened? Like, I don't remember that at all. Like, but it was a necessary lesson. I mean, like, it was like that. Like, if I notice something throughout my career, like, there's always this tendency that I have where it's like close to that prize that I tend to drop the ball, so to speak, one way or the other. It's almost like this self-sabotaging thing that I subconsciously do, where like whether it was the Andrew Trace fight, it was like, oh, I'm a fight away, this first biggest like payday of my life or whatever, and I go out there and subconsciously I do things that I don't normally do that like one another affects the outcome. It's like, why do I do that? Like, I mean, at one point it was Andrew Trace, but like I watched a series of things that I've done leading up to that fight that kind of played out in that fight, and it's like, huh. Well, that sucked. And then the Mike Ricci fight, the same thing. Like, I remember being on the bus, going to the Ultimate Fighter gym for the fight, and my coach asked me, Winter, hey, how you feeling? I'm like, I feel good. What? Why? No big deal. They're like, yeah, you're feeling good. How, like, how's your hydration? How'd you sleep last night? How'd you eat? And I'm just like, yeah, hey, fine. Hydration's cool. Like, oh, really? Well, what did that MVP? And I'm like, I don't know, this morning. And it's like 6 o'clock in the evening, whatever. It's like, and I'm like, oh, I peed in the morning. Like, why is he asking this? He wasn't registering why he was asking particular questions, but being a sports performance coach, he was kind of asking to gauge, like, how did I rehydrate after my weight cut? How do I handle all these other things? Because, like, that was also the last day of filming, so everyone's just like, whoa, it's over with. We're out of the house. Like, one more fight, the cameras are off, we are done, kind of thing. So I got complacent. I didn't, like, do all the things I did to get me to that point. Like, I remember going to the Ultimate Fighter gym. He's just like, wait, you having pizzas this morning? That's not okay. And so he's like, start handing me water bottles. Like, hey man, you need to start hydrating now or whatever. And like, we're at the Ultimate Fighter gym for like an hour or two, and I'm finally able to pee again. It's like the darkest brown pee you can imagine. I'm just like, oh crap, I'm dehydrated. And sure enough, the fight played out the way it did. And like, I actually got concussed or knocked out twice within that fight. There was a point where he dropped me, and I don't necessarily remember getting back to my feet. I just remember being on the cage and my coach saying, hey, work back to your feet, work back to your feet. I'm just like, yeah, work back to my feet. I don't know why I'm not on my feet, but let me work back to my feet here. And then the elbow happened, and then the same thing, just trying to like play back and see like what happened, what's in place or whatever. But that was yet another lesson we learned. Like the correlation between hydration and concussions and knockouts and that kind of thing is very close. And that was a big lesson I learned throughout my career, is like how I treat the nutritional side of going out there and competing as well. Not just like training, all the other stuff, like actual nutrition, hydration, and preparation going to the fight on that end.
So your coaches, you had Nate Marquardt and you had Trevor Whitman.
Yeah.
Who did you bond with? Like, what coach did you bond with the most?
Maybe Nate Marquardt. Nate Marquardt was actually one of the guys that allowed me to move out to Denver, Colorado. Like, when I first moved here, I spent the first 6 months living in his basement. Like, it got to the point that, like, I would go upstairs, like, literally be like the fourth kid. Like, his daughter would, like, literally sit there and paint my nails at the kitchen table. His son, like, hey, Neil, let me get on your shoulders and go play in the backyard. Like, I was literally like the fourth kid that they had almost. I was like literally living with them for like the first 6 months I was here. And like living with Nate was like pretty significant part of my career. Like, it was like basic training for MMA. Like, I got to learn all the things about mixed martial arts that's outside the cage. Cause like, you always get a wrestling coach show you how to wrestle, you get a strike coach show you how to strike, a jiu-jitsu coach show you how to grapple, all that stuff. But no one really talks to you about like the other stuff that goes into mixed martial arts, as far as like, how do you treat like a business in order to be here for a while or whatever? Like, how do you handle taxes? How do you handle getting an LLC or an S corp? How do you handle paying coaches? How do you handle nutrition and dietitians? How do you handle weight cuts? How do you handle all these things that injury prevention, sports performance? Like, no one ever talked to a young fighter about all these different things. Just kind of assume that you're supposed to know it. But fortunately, a guy like Nate's been in the sport like 20 plus years. So
Two.
me getting with him for 6 months is literally like receiving a blueprint or a cheat code. Like, hey, this is the key to being a successful MMA fighter, not just in the cage, but at life. Like, so you can have something to show for when it's all said and done. And like those 6 months living with them was probably the best 6 months of my life and career.
Nate Marquardt, former king of Pancrase, he is just so underappreciated. You know, he really is just a brilliant, combat sports mind. And, he lives the life too. Like, there's not a lot outside of the cage involving him either. That's kind of looked at left of center. After the Ultimate Fighter for the finale, you were not on it. Did you have concerns that maybe you weren't going to sign a contract with them, or what were the conversations like?
No, so I knew I wasn't. I knew I had got it because Dana White had came in and he chewed us all out. He was just like, "What the hell do you guys think this is? Do you guys think you're going to show me to fight on the Ultimate Fighter or fight in the UFC with the crap that I'm seeing out there now?" Like, no, it's not happening. None of you guys have earned a UFC contract yet. Absolutely none of you guys. And like, it literally let the air out of the room. And I'm just sitting there like, no, not me. I won my fights. I'm still going forward. Like, I'm not one of these guys. Like, I'm going to fight for UFC. I'm going to get my shot. I'm going to get a chance. It's not over for me yet. But like, when it came time to the Ultimate Fighter finale, it was just like waiting for my contract. Like, oh wait, maybe I did get a matchup. Like, maybe I was one of those guys that aren't going to get a chance to fight for the UFC. But then the contract came in like 6 weeks out, where I got the promotional contract where it had said like, hey, you have 4 fights in the Ultimate in the UFC, and you have a bout agreement against John Manley or whatever. And we were actually scheduled to fight on the Ultimate Fighter finale, but he unfortunately caught staph and wasn't able to fight that night. So they pushed our fight back to February the following year.
So Joe Manley, or John Manley, I should say, 7-1 out of Team Link with Gabriel Gonzaga. It was more of like a battle for third place. So it was you two were the only guys in the house that got the contract. Everybody else got cut. Was there any? Did you keep in contact with anybody after that, or was it just when you left, you were done?
I kept in contact with some guys like Igor, Bristol, all these guys. I kept in contact with some guys along the way because like once the competition, like even Bristol was one of the guys I kept in contact with because like there were conversations that took place that had to do less with MMA but more about life in general. Like Bristol's he's a contractor and his wife's a real estate agent out in Vegas, and they do some amazing like flips out there. So much so that Bristol was able to get a TV show on HGTV at one point called Flip in Vegas or whatever, and that's something I'm interested in. So staying in contact, communication with things like that was pretty cool over the years. And then just small talk here and there with some of the other guys, just kind of like, hey man, wish you the best, happy success, get up to a better person, blah blah blah, moving forward or whatever. But like it was never any like hostility for the most part with the majority of guys on the show. Like Julian Lane, I care less about. Like if I never see that Magic day in my life, I won't lose sleep about it at all. But like there's some guys on the show, like it was cool to spend that moment in time with them at least.
Hey, how was Marunde on the ground? Because I booked him back in the old days, and he came with Dennis Hallman and Anthony Hamlet and those guys from his origins. So he's a Northwest guy. Yeah. Those guys can be pretty tricky on the ground without being jiu-jitsu guys. And anything you remember from him? Because he was pretty he had his level.
Not too much anything that stuck out, but the thing that made it difficult is just like I said, he was a teammate on the show, quote unquote. So like we had trained together several times leading up to that fight. So it was kind of you kind of knew each other's tricks at that point. So I mean, it's like when you go into the fight, it's just like, oh, here's that thing he did last time, and you avoid it. Like, you know what I mean? So it made for a difficult fight because he kind of knew what to expect on both ends. Like he kind of knew what I was getting ready to do, and the same thing vice versa with him. So it kind of made it difficult where it's like, oh, I'm gonna catch him with this surprise thing. Like, hey, that's the surprise thing you didn't price to me 10 times already. It's not gonna work tonight. Like, you know what I mean? So it made the fight very difficult in that sense, where because we had trained together so for literally 6 days a week for 5 weeks up to or 4 weeks up to that point, it was just like, all right, I know this guy pretty decently at this point.
Yeah.
Wow. Your first UFC fight after Manley was July 3rd, 2013, UFC 163. They flew you out to Rio. That's any trepidation, any issues? Your opponent was Sergio Moraes, the Panther.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was that first year in the UFC was literally a big growth experience for me. Like, really made me question, like, all right, you here it is, you made it here. do you really want to be here kind of thing. And it really, like I said, really made me question like a lot of things about myself going into that, like the Sergio Moraes like fight or whatever. Like even I said today, like even though I had that fortunate situation of being with Nate Marquardt and all this other stuff for the first 6 months and learning about like how to handle MMA as a business kind of thing, it wasn't easy. You know what I mean? Like I spent 7 weeks on the Ultimate Fighter TV show, and I uprooted my life and moved to Denver afterwards in anticipation I'm going to fight the Ultimate Fighter finale, which would have been a few months later. So like you think of like the financial like risk that is to take. Like I quit my job at that point. I was like in my last year of the army. I turned down the police academy, and I literally just uprooted my life and like, all right, I'm going to Colorado. I literally loaded up my Hyundai Sonata with everything I can like take with me, and like pretty much gave or threw everything else away. And it was like, all right, I'm heading west. I'm gonna make this thing happen. And like the little money I had from the Ultimate Fighter was like what I was trying to make stretch throughout the UFC. So when it came time for me to fight, I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna fight December. I'll get my pay. Things would be cool. I'll be able to move forward from there. That wasn't how it played out. Like I was like, crap. Like I living here for 6 months without a job, chasing this like quote unquote UFC fighter lifestyle or whatever. And here I am, my credit cards maxed out, bank account drained and overdraft. Like how am I gonna go out there for my best? So like going to the Sergio Moraes fight, like it was hard trying to like focus what I needed to do with all this extra baggage like that was going on as well. And I was just like, man, like I gotta figure this thing out. Like I don't know if I'm gonna like I don't know how I'm gonna make it out there. Like I gotta get a passport now. I didn't have a passport going into that fight. I gotta cover a second coach's air flight and airfare to Rio, like $2,500 or whatever. Like, oh, that's an extra expense. And then like medicals and all that stuff. So like I was like in debt going into the fight, thinking about all this other stuff except for the fight, and go out there and completely shit the bed. I'm just like, oh crap, dude. Like,
well, you say shit the bed. Your first UFC opponent, 7-2 out of shoot box. One of their coaches. He's a 3-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, and you know he's walking distance to the venue. Like it couldn't have been like a steeper learning curve.
I could beat him. I should have beat him. I didn't beat him, so I definitely should have been. Like it was just like you know what I mean. Like going out there, like man, I know I should have done better than that. But like I said, it was an opportunity to grow as well. Like that loss definitely sucked. It set me back a lot. And I was like, man, what am I going to do about this or whatever? And I'm like trying to like figure this thing out. And then like, here you are thinking like, all right, I got to figure it out. I'm good to go. I'm going to take this to the next fight and make things happen. And I go out there and I fight Seth
Beksinski, November 6th, 2013 UFC Fight Night 31, right in front of the troops, dude. Your people.
Yeah. There's like, oh, here it is. This is my chance to bounce back and go out there and get it done. And I just didn't have it figured out. Dude. Like I remember we're backstage, we're warming up, doing our thing. Bert Watson, which is like he's like the
general.
Yeah, he's like the general. He runs the show backstage, make sure everyone's where it should be, how they should be. And he walks past my my warm-up room. He's like, hey Neil, you're up for 45 minutes. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm getting my hands wrapped. I'm getting ready to go do my thing. So I sit down, so I get my hand wrapped, and like start like getting dressed. And not even within 2 minutes of him walking past, saying I had 45 minutes, he comes down, hey Neil, you're on deck. I'm like, I'm on deck? Like what? I thought I had 45 minutes. So I'm like, now I'm like backstage trying to rush. Like, oh, where's my cover? My mouthpiece? Where's this? Where's that? And I'm just like, all right, cool. I have to go fight. So I'm just like driving my stuff, getting dressed as I'm walking to the curtain to walk out there. I'm like, dude, this is it. Like, barely any warm up or anything. It's like, this is it. I'm going out there. And the first 2 rounds in that, or the first round in that fight, I'm like trying to figure out, like, all right, cool. Let me get warmed up and get ready to go. I get that round away. The second round, like, all right, cool. I'm starting to get warmed up, ready to go. That round is close. They give it to him. The third round is completing my fight, but at that point, it's over with. I wasted the first round getting warmed up. The second round was too close, and the third round I won, but it just wasn't enough. And I dropped the ball on there, and I'm just like, crap, dude, that's 2 fights in a row. I'm gonna get cut. Like this is it. Like it's over with.
Well, let's talk about the situation. Seth Beksinski going into this fight. He's 18-10. He came out of the Ultimate Fighter as a body and performed so well that they brought him over. Real exciting fighting style as well. He's won 6 of his last 8, but he's 2 losses in a row. One of his wins is over Matt Brown. He said, I talked to him about your fight. He's, I keep in touch with him, and he's just like, with about 90 seconds left in the third round, Neil kneed me in my hip, and it made my leg go numb. And he's like, I freaked out. He's like, I've never experienced that in all my years of fighting. And he's like, he's like, I can't believe I didn't like just freak out and say, let me get out of here. So you actually almost finished him.
Close didn't cut it. Like, it just sucks, man. But like I said, and at that point, I was just like, dude, this is it. I dropped 2 fights in a row. I'm cut. There's no way you're just keep me after this one or whatever.
And he pinned you against the fence. He pinned you against the fence over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I legitimately thought it was over. Like, I remember being in Denver, and I'm not even kidding you. At this point, like, I'm like, freak, man, like, how do I end up in this position? Like, I quit my job. I did all this stuff. I moved to Colorado thinking, like, I made it. I'm a UFC fighter. Life's about to be great or whatever. And I'm freaking in the hole trying to dig myself out, literally, so to speak. And I'm just like, how do I end up here kind of thing? And I'm just trying to figure it out. And then finally I sit back, I'm like, well, if you are cut, what are you going to do? If you're not cut, what are you going to do kind of thing? And I'm like, all right, well, life doesn't stop it because this first couple fights didn't go my way kind of thing. And I remember like literally going in and I physically took the written exam for the Denver Police Academy at this point. Like, to join Denver Police at this. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, like, I'm going to come from UFC. I'll be a police officer. I'll keep working my way through. Hope I can get back to UFC. But in the meantime, I can't keep like digging myself further and further in the hole trying to make this thing happen or whatever. I have to like at some point get back on level ground, so to speak. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to apply for the Denver Police Academy. I'll go through that and I'll work my way out of this hole and I'll start pursuing MMA again. And I remember walking into a wrestling practice one day and Donald Cerrone is there and my wrestling coach is there. And like, about 30 minutes before practice started or so, and I'm just like this worrying it on my face, like this look of like worry, like fuck, man, I'm gonna get caught. Just waiting for the day for him to like send me my walking papers or whatever else, and like let me know, like, hey man, have me, see you later, kind of thing. And I'm just like, I'm stressed about it. And then Donald was like, what the hell's wrong with you? And I'm just like, bro, I'm about to get cut, man. He's just like, well, why don't you just send Joe Silva an email, a message, a text, something, and I'll let you ready to fight right now and see what he says. And I'm like, dude, what if he cuss me? And well, at least you know you're not sitting here wondering, like, you're either gonna get cut or you're not. It's like, well, I guess you're right. So before practice, I sent an email like, hey, I know my last 2 fights didn't go my way. I know for sure I can do a lot better than that. I just need an opportunity to get things in order and an opportunity to go out there and shine, blah, blah, blah. Leave that message on there. It's like, I'm willing to fight anyone, anytime. Just let me know when and where you need me, kind of thing. I sent an email. I set my phone literally across the gym. I set it way across the gym, so I don't want to hear a ring. I don't want to hear a ding. I don't want to hear anything. I just want to like go in, focus on this practice and deal with it later, kind of thing. So I go in and just like, and I just train my ass off. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's get this fight going, or let's get this training going, and let's make the best of it. And after practice, I kind of mosey back over, find my phone, and I'm looking at it, and it's email from Joe Silva. I'm just like, oh crap, here it is. Here it is. I got caught. It's over with. And I open it, just like, yeah, dude, that's what I like to hear. How'd you like to fight in? I think it was January or something, which is a couple months away. I'm just like, yes, I'll take it. I didn't even look at the name. I just said, yes, I'll take it. And at this point, I was just like, cool, I'm gonna make this thing happen. So at this point, I finally start working with my striking coach, Christian Allen, my wrestling coach, Lisa Bowling's there, and it was like, looking all the court, like, hey coaches, I got another shot. I'll make this the best run possible. Like, here it is, dude. I'll make the best of this opportunity or whatever. And everyone's just like, all right, cool. I like it. Let's make it happen.
So Miguel, you got to listen. You got to check this out. So Seth Bagzinski lost 2 fights in a row. If he lost against Neil, he was cut. He put on a heroic performance. Man, that was a pretty emotional fight to watch, man. It was a fun one. So what do they do to Neil? February 1st, 2014, UFC 169. They sent him to New Jersey, close to New York. You can see some of your family. Khabib Nurmagomedov's a teammate, Ghassan Umalatov, one of the first line of the Russian invasion coming to the UFC. And Neil gets a guy that's 14-2, who's also the world Sambo champion at the time.
Yeah, there were many times I did not care. I was like, I'm gonna go out there and make the best of this. I remember working my strike coach, Christian.
You haven't learned.
Like we're sitting there, and he's working with my base or whatever, and we're getting to the point of working the jab. He's like, no, I need you to turn your knuckle over to the jab, turn knuckle over to the jab, and like we're doing this over and over and over again. And I'm just like, damn, coach, we're gonna fight this guy, and we're working on the freaking jab. We need to work more. He's like, no. It's almost like my my wax on, wax off moment with Mr. Miyagi, where he's just like so hyper focused on his jab. Like, hey, I need you to throw the jab like this. Trust me. And I'm just like, all right, coach, I have a pretty big fight here. I just lost the last two. Might be getting tough if I lose this one, but I'm going to work on his jab. So here I am, working on his jab. And it's like getting me to turn his jab over and over and over again to throw it a certain kind of way. And I'm just like, cool, I trust you. I'm going to go with it. So we fast forward to the night of the fight, and I'm like, here we are. I literally threw that jab that we worked on probably 200 times and landed 150 times that fight. I threw it so much that I literally rubbed the skin on my knuckles raw. Trying, like, when I took the wraps off, there was literally like the skin was rubbed off on my knuckles from turning it over on that jab so many times in order to land it the way we did in training prior to it. And I looked over at him, his hand is hurting, bleeding, all cut up. It's like, it worked. Good job. We figured it out. And that was the beginning for my UFC career being what it is now. Like, I mean, I went on a 7-fight win streak with my coaches from there. I lost to David Maya, turned around and fought a week and a half, 2 weeks later against Eric Silva. I went 5-0 one year, 4-1 the following year, 9-1 total within like 18 months, whatever. Just chasing that goal, just trying to find a way to quote unquote get on top and separate myself from my peers, so to speak. And been at it ever since this point.
Was that email that you sent after the conversation with Cerrone? Was that your first actual conversation with Joe Silva, or because after that, obviously you were a go-to guy for him? You know what I mean? And he had you at speed dial, so are you Cerrone's another guy just like you, so it looks like Silva likes those guys, huh?
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate where, like, because I was so eager to get to UFC and all this other stuff, like, I never had opportunity to, like, work with management. Like, for the most part, throughout my UFC career, even up to now, I always, like, handled things myself, and it was always straightforward. Excuse me. It was always me going out there, fighting the best guys and looking for the best outcome. I never played, like, the quote-unquote political games. I never, like, pick and chose which fight was like the most favorable matchup for me. It was always like the guy was like, all right, cool. I know I can beat anyone. I'm gonna go out there and prove I can beat anyone kind of thing. And if I came up short, I was like, damn it, that sucked. And I got right back on the horse, so to speak. So like building that relationship with the UFC over the years, I feel like definitely like it helps cement me where I'm at now with the company and with my career so far. Like I was never a guy that's kind of like picking and choosing when he fights, who he fights, or anything like that. I mean, even to my last fight, like my son was scheduled to be born. Like my wife was really scheduled to have a C-section on June 21st. And I was scheduled to have a fight on June 25th. So literally it would have been like the morning of, like, hey, my son's here, high five. Daddy has to go to work. I'll see you on Sunday, kind of thing. And that's just where I live my life. I mean, like, this is a very small window for me. I'm pretty sure to be in the position I am now. And I just make the best of it all. Because there'll be a day where I can't do this anymore, and I'm gonna sit back and wish that I could. So until that day comes, I'll make sure I go out there and make the best of every opportunity.
Can we knock out a couple more fights? Would you mind? Or do you gotta get going?
What's that?
Can we knock out a couple more fights, or are you busy today?
Oh, fights? Like, yeah, sign me up. What do you think?
No. It's like I get Neil. I'm like a maniac with notes. Yeah, no, it's like I got a bunch. One, your training partners, Justin Gaethje, Cowboy Cerrone, Nate Marquardt. Like, you've trained with the best of the best, and that elevated area of Colorado. It's like you took a cardio machine and it's just like you just fed them just raw oxygen. It's amazing, just like how much pressure. Pressure has won you more fights than anybody else in the UFC, in my opinion.
For sure. Yeah, like you said earlier in this thing, like, I mean, like, starting out, it wasn't like the strongest guy, things like that, but I'd be damned if I'm getting outworked by anyone else. Like, throughout my career, I have 2 losses by decision, and those 2 decision losses bothered me than any other loss throughout my career. And it wasn't because, like, this happened or that happened, but it's just the sheer fact that I know somebody else, quote unquote, outworked me, and that bothers me. Like, that's the one thing that's in my control. And those 2 fights, I allowed someone else to outwork me, and that bothers me. So moving forward, or even just for my career, that's the only thing that I have control of. It's like my output, my effort, my pace, my kind of, like, you know what I mean? It's just only that I control. I can't control how hard somebody hits. I can't control how somebody fights, but I can't control my output and how much I'm willing to fight.
When you fought Tim Means, he was 25-1. He fought at 155, moved up to 170. he was a minus 240 favorite. You were walking into a buzzsaw, and you just fought the Sambo world champion. Tim Means, I don't think he understood what cardio meant until he fought.
yeah. I mean, like, and that was a late replacement fight too. I think I was scheduled to fight someone else leading up to that fight, and it was a completely different matchup. I remember when the Tim Means fight came up, I was like, what the hell am I going to find a 6'2" southpaw training partner who's a striker on 4 weeks' notice? Like, this is not a guy that, like, you just, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have that kind of guy hanging around the gym or whatever. And when that fight came through, it was definitely a huge adjustment for me. I was just like, this is interesting. A guy with similar reach, similar everything, but he's also like a southpaw, which is a different, like, a style to prepare for, so to speak. So there's definitely some learning on the fly going to the Tim Means fight. But one thing stayed true. I was just like, all right, cool. I'm going to figure this out one way or the other.
You go from there. You finished Tim with the decision, or I should say, the fight finished with the decision, but you were on your way. Like, Tim Means is one tough SOB. Like, he kept taking in there. You had questionable jiu-jitsu at this time. They threw you up against another black belt, June 28, 2014. In New Zealand, Rodrigo De Lima. Man, that first round. You remember that first round?
Oh, yeah. I remember how it ended, too. I remember they had thrown that triangle. I was like, holy crap, this thing's getting tight. And they're like, last-ditch effort. I was like, remember, just lifting him up like Rampage style. Like, I just, like, had him in the air, just holding on. I just got to walk over to the fence. I was like, all right, if I set him on the fence here, he can't extend back and, like, make this choke any tighter than what it is. So I'm just like, all right, all I can do is hold on to, like, 10 more seconds and, like, and go from there. And I just remember, it's like, all right, there goes the clocker, 10 seconds left. I'm like, what if I just go for a slam here? So I tried to, like, Rampage slam on his back, and it wasn't as, like, glamorous as Rampage at all. I dropped him in, and the triangle choke got tighter. Like, oh, crap. I probably should have stayed standing, but the choke ended up getting tighter. And it's like, all right, just hold on. At this point, I have 3-4 seconds left. So I survived that round. I was like, all right, that was a round that he definitely won, attacking the submission the way that he did. I have to take this back. And I just came out the gate sprinting, like, literally, like, throwing all types of combinations, switching stances on him, everything else, blitzing forward, coming back with combinations. And I was able to clip him and get a TKO to win that fight.
So for people at home, Matt Hughes, Carlos Newton, that heroic slam at the end. Neil had, Rodrigo up against the fence. It was just like people, like, it told me two things. One, you were thinking while fighting. Sometimes people get that tunnel vision to where you're in there just kind of just vamping, going any which way you can and understanding where you're at. Did you see how he got up when that bell rang?
Yeah, that was the best thing. Like, my wrestling coach said this to this day. Like, one of the things he likes doing or pointing out to me in between rounds of the fight, like, literally as I'm walking back, like, whether I won the fight or not, it's like kind of give me that extra bit of motivation or like extra kick in the butt. He would say, hey, stop, look at him, look at your opponent right now, look at how he's getting up. I'm just like, oh, I got him. I can see him crawling to the fence or whatever I was getting up, and I'm just like, oh, cool. I'm gonna blitz out there and meet him in the center.
And De Lima dominated the first round, like literally wobbled to get up because he was so tired from, like, just next leveling it. I mean, he ran his engine in the red, and I'm like, dude, Magny's a cardio machine. He's winning this fight, and you were an underdog too. In 2014, you also fought Alex Garcia. I thought you may have overtrained for that fight. Is that what may have happened? Obviously, you won the bout, but it seemed like you were a little slower, a little step there.
Yeah, so there were two things that took place in that fight. Like I said, I had fought 5 times that year, 5 wins or whatever.
This is number 4.
Yeah, that was the 4th fight. I think it was like a month or 2 after the other fight. So, like, it was, I can't remember how close together it was, but I remember thinking about it. I was like going into it, I was just like in my mind, I was like, all right, take a break, get back to it, whatever. Like, I rarely ever take breaks between fights. At this point, I've been going at it so much. I was just like, all right, take a quick breather and take this fight. And I remember I literally took a couple of days off or whatever, and I flew to the Dominican Republic to, like, just kind of relax for a bit, like, enjoy myself. And as I was like on a 5-day vacation or something like that. On day 2, I get a call from Joe Silva, hey, where you at? And I'm like, I'm just hanging out, like, take some time off, just relaxing a bit. And he said, like, cool, we didn't want to fight. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever the fight's about, I'm there. Like, cool, I like it. I was showing this replacement fight for you. What do you think about Alex Garcia 3 weeks away? I'm like, all right, sign me up. As soon as I hang up the phone with him, I call United, like, hey, I need to change my flight. I need to get back to Denver as soon as possible.
So your wife must have wanted to kill you.
Yeah, I literally cut my vacation short, flew right back to Colorado and jumped right back to training camp. 3 weeks notice, went out there and fought him or whatever. And this fight was interesting because, like, it was also a good changing moment for me where, like, leading up to the fight, we were in Oklahoma, so like a real small town or whatever. So like we had to share the same sauna, share the same hot tub, share all the same things or whatever. So I'm hanging out with the guy getting ready to fight all week long because we couldn't skip one another. Like the town is so small that we're literally everywhere he goes, I'm there. Everywhere I go, he's there. Like we're just literally by each other every single time. And I remember like befriending this guy. We're about to fight each other. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Why am I friends with the guy and getting ready to fight? This doesn't feel right, kind of thing. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Let me wait to this fight. And I remember in the first round, I did something. I hit him with a jab or something like that. His legs wobbled, and I saw his knee like reacted funny. And like after befriending this guy the week of, it felt weird, like pouncing on a guy who like I can see he's injured. I can see something's wrong with his knee. It's kind of tweaked or whatever. So in my mind, it's like, I can't pull the trigger. I can't go out there and like end this thing. So I'm like, I'm just gonna like quote unquote like take it easy kind of thing against this guy. So I kind of like just kind of point my way through that fight, just like not like put the pedal to the floor, so to speak. I don't take advantage of the wounded animal, so to speak. I just kind of like let it play out and everything else like that. And then after the fight, it's like a week or so later, I'm hearing interviews about this guy. Like, man, F. Neil Magny, that fight wasn't close at all. I thought I won that fight. I beat Neil Magny any day of the week, this and that. I'm just like, this bastard, dude. Like, I took it easy on you because I thought you were injured, and I didn't like feel comfortable like taking advantage in that moment. And here you are running around in interviews and everything else like that, saying how you feel like you won the fight and everything else like that. So I was just like, all right, let me go ahead and turn this nice guy attitude off when it comes to fight. Like I understand this is my job, my career. I'm not in here to create any kind of like malintent or injure someone to the point that he can't like enjoy life outside of fighting. But that allowed me to accept the truth that is possibly that can and may happen. Someone may get seriously injured in the fight or whatever. That's not for me to decide when that happens or doesn't happen. I just go out there and do my job or whatever. But that actually changed the way I go into fights. If you notice, it's that fight, the whole idea of going out there and just like having opponents, like I don't do that anymore. I just go out there like, hey, for the next 15 or 25 minutes, we're here to fight. After the fight, I'll embrace we'll do whatever we have to do. But for this particular time, I'm not here to be your buddy. I'm here to fight you and be the better man or whatever. So that was the moment that actually shifted how I approach fights now too.
Your last fight, and this is what I'm going to wrap up with. 2014, October 25th, 2014, UFC 179. William Macario. It's in Rio de Janeiro. He actually grew up very close to the arena as well. It's his hometown. Man, dude, this is your fifth fight in the calendar year, and if you had won, you would have tied the UFC record, for most wins in 1 year. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. Go back to Rio. The Rio fans are pretty intense, and like that fight was one of those moments that like it kind of pulled on the heartstrings again. Like this guy, like you said, he grew up right in the streets. So like all fight week, we're in Rio, and you see him. He's there with his family, he's there with his mother, he's there with his lady, his kids, everything else like that. And you see this guy really enjoying himself and doing that, and like seeing firsthand, like watching like the backstory and all this other stuff, like where he's from and how he grew up, all this other stuff. It starts pulling at the heartstrings a bit, and it's like, whoa, I'm not going down this route again. Here I am. Being nice to Alex Garcia, that didn't pay off or whatever. I have a job to do. I have to go out there and beat this man. I get to where in his backyard. I get his family's here. I get his kids in the crowd, but I have a job to do. I have to go out there and beat this guy. And the opportunity came for me to go out there and find a way to finish the fight, and I took full advantage of it. I was able to take him down, do some serious ground and pound, and get the TKO finish. But that was a changeable for me, or on the growth mode, like acknowledging what happened in the fight with Alex Garcia and applying it right away with this guy, where it's like, all right, there goes heartstrings getting pulled again. Put those emotions aside and focus on the job you have to do. And my job is to go out there and beat him. And I was just like, all right, whatever it takes, go out there and beat this guy in whatever fashion you can, and end up in a TKO.
You out cardioed him. You beat him like in his hometown. Obviously not an easy thing to do. At this point, it seemed like mentally you had made some adjustments. And you had also given a few interviews talking about that. Who helped you change your mind mentally in regards to where you're at fighting?
The biggest thing was like that time I spent living with Nate. Like I remember when I first moved there, like I wasn't very big into like Christianity or anything like that. But I remember moving with Nate. His family was real big on that kind of stuff. And at first I was like, that's different. I kind of like left it off of there or whatever. But it wasn't until like I started like facing my own hardships or whatever, and finding difficult moments where like I didn't know how things were going to play out, so to speak. I was just like, man, this is an uneasy feeling for me. I don't know how to like calm this like anxiety or nervousness that I'm feeling right now. And like seeing how calm he was throughout the storms that he was going through as well. I was just like, maybe I should try what he's doing for a bit or whatever. And like, for me, relying on my faith has been like the biggest thing to help pull me through some of these circumstances. I mean, like if I think of early on when I was struggling to make ends meet throughout my first couple of UFC fights or whatever, like, man, how am I going to cover this? How am I going to cover that or whatever? Like just having the faith that's going to work out and having faith that a guy's fight will provide for my needs or whatever. And like, and just focusing on the small tasks with my control made it a lot easier for me that I didn't have to worry about like all these bigger things that are out of my reach or out of my control. So it's like, all right, the fight. So I have to focus on everything else. I'll deal with when I come back to it. But right now, because of what I believe, because of my faith, because of everything else, I can focus on this very small task at hand, which is the fight.
Your fifth fight for the calendar year was in October 25th. Did you try to get a sixth then?
Oh, yeah. I was definitely trying to get it. I think I ended up fighting January the following year or whatever, but I was really trying to push to go to get that sixth fight within that calendar year.
Joe Silva wouldn't do it, huh?
No, this is the time this didn't work out well enough. But like, he's like, yeah, the best I can do is January. I'm like, come on, let's push it back a month earlier. So like, I can do it. Let me do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Neil, you also, let's talk about some of your former training partners. Dan Hornbuckle, you also shared some mats with him. Would you mind telling us your experience with him?
Right, I think it was great, man. Like I said, it was cool to meet these guys early on and see the love and success they had, because like that's what's first started like creating that belief that I can be where these guys are and even take it further or whatever. So Dan Hornbuckle, Miguel Torres, all these guys, it's like wow, like and you get to see that it's like it's nothing particular special that they do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, wow, this guy bleeds just like I bleed. This guy trains just like I train. Like, there's nothing like that he does that's like significantly different or better than what I'm doing or whatever. And let's just let you like believe that, like, all right, cool. If he can do it, I can do it kind of thing. Because there's nothing like significantly crazy or different about this individual than yourself or whatever. And that allows you to start like believing that you can be where they are kind of thing. And for me, that's all it took.
Yeah, just kind of how do you handle the situation? It's not the situation, it's how you handle it.
For sure, yeah.
What about USADA? What are your feelings in regards to that? And I'm done.
Yeah, so like that was a long 60 months figuring that part out or whatever. Would I have liked hey, my bad, we got it wrong kind of thing? Like, yeah, that would have been cool. But the biggest thing for me was just like realizing that like the system wasn't necessarily perfect, but them at least acknowledging and do something to change it or whatever. Like, it was unfortunate that I had to miss 16 months of my career because of a ruling in the USADA books and how things were written or whatever. And it took a while for that to be changed or whatever. But because I went through what I went through, because I had so much support from the members of the MMA community and things like that, and that my character spoke so much about it, these guys are waiting to like actually go through and look at their system and think like, wow, something's not right here. Let's look at how we do things and see what we can do to like make it more fair, more just for the fighters. And go through what I did, help change the rule set where fighters who are legitimately innocent and fall to and fall victim of like contaminated substances or things that are outside their reach won't be penalized or punished for something that they had no idea and or control over. So I was able to help add a common sense clause to the USADA rule setting where if there's a certain level contaminants that are found in a sample, the fighter won't be punished for it if it can be proven through science and things like that. The fighter didn't get any significant like advantage. There wasn't like any. It doesn't appear to be the remnants of any kind of doping, anything like that. It doesn't appear to be anything that the fighter did intentionally. They won't get punished for it. They're just using common sense calls like, all right, cool. Based off the evidence that we received, this looks more like contamination than it does of someone purposely trying to cheat the system. We're not going to fault the fighter for that.
So in essence, Miguel, for those at home, Neil tested positive for a banned substance, and it was a very high elevated level of it. And it's something that doesn't come out of your system. Your proximate urine sample, it's not in it, and it wasn't enough time for it to leave your body. And that substance, that molecule that was in it, is in the same soap that's in the bathroom where you took the test. Am I correct?
No, I mean it's not that simple of it. Like there was the part it was very trace amounts that was found in the sample. And then one of the things that worked in my favor was the fact that like I was tested on a Sunday, and for some reason you thought it was gung-ho. It was like, hey, let's test on a Tuesday too. Like, you know what I mean? So I was tested on a Tuesday again. So like because there was such a trace amount the first time, and I was tested prior to that at being able to go in a fight, whatever, because it was so close to when the samples were collected, they're looking at it like, it doesn't make sense. This particular substance that was appearing in there would be something that's found in like a SARM or something like that. And where I was at in training camp, getting ready to lose weight, to make weight, that kind of thing, it wasn't a substance that I would have been taking to help increase my body mass. I was in camp, I should be doing the opposite of the time. So there's like all the evidence and all the like science around that that's led them to believe like, hey, yeah, this doesn't look like anything that he was doing intentionally. This has to be some kind of contamination. But the downside is that you saw prior to that situation, there was just what was called the strict liability clause, where if it's in your system, you're responsible for it. We don't care how it got there. We don't care what amount it is. It's there. You're liable for it. And that's how it was before then. But it wasn't to that situation I was going through, whatever else, that were just like, wait. This doesn't seem right. Like we can't.
Even your opponent. Your opponent stuck up for you.
Yeah. It was like, this doesn't seem right. We can't like fault the guy for something that's out of their control. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't someone that's trying to like beat the system, cheat the system, anything like that. And to make it worse, I was literally at dinner one day. You saw the scientist who's like, yeah, man, when your sample came through, it lit up like a Christmas tree, and we knew for a fact that it wasn't anything that you were doing wrong, because no one even uses that kind of stuff. It's so easily detectable. And I'm just sitting there listening to this at dinner like, wait a minute, you knew this was BS going up, and you still like followed through on it. But like, yeah, man, my hands were tied. Like I had to go by what the book said. So like going through the whole process that I went through, they were able to like actually address the issues that were at hand and see like, all right, how can we make this more fair for the fighters? Not necessarily to like give them a great area to operate in, but more so like protect the guys who are actually innocent and doing the things they need to do.
Now let me get this straight. So this case, the laws got changed for USADA, or
they made a difference
and stuff. So you made a difference, and what you got for it was a nice pat on the back, right?
Long story short, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, though, you suffered your 16. You were healthy.
Healthy in my prime, 60 months not competing.
Yeah, and forget about the fact that you would have fought, 7 times.
It was at least 25 fights.
Even 2 or 3 times, a check for 80 grand of compensation or something like that. I don't know, I don't know what the right number is, but 16 months is a long time and painful for a guy who wants it. Like if a guy wants to hold out and, negotiate more money or whatever, they're making a decision on their own, but that's completely taken away from you in your prime earning years. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, a pat on the back is nice, but for them, real recognition, I don't think you've gotten, so they should be at least out there more.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but like, that's the hard part. Like, do I want to spend time figuring out like who's right and how to get the conversation around? It's like, man, that sucks, but I'm glad it's behind me now and I can move forward kind of thing. Like, I agree, but like, how long would it take for me to like go through and get that conversation that I would probably have earned or deserved kind of thing? And then with that being said too, like with them admitting any kind of like faulting like that opened up the door for prior athletes to come in and try to like use this as case law to like work in their favor as well. So like it's like a whole Pandora's box, this thing, and opened up. I was like, hey, how come he got this and I didn't get this? I got this punishment as well. You know what I mean? So it's just, even though it sucked for those 16 months, unfortunately, that like it's behind me now, and it's something that's less likely to happen to fighters moving forward. I mean, so fast forward to Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz was 5 weeks out from a fight in Massacre Garden against who's he ready to fight? I think he was ready to fight BMF side. He's ready to fight Masvidal. He tested positive for the same exact substance, similar to the amount, but because that thing that had gone through months prior had finally gotten resolved, the rules that was finally changed and put in place, he was able to like, hey, yeah, you're good to go, then go out there and do your thing, and you have to go out there and compete. So as frustrating as it was to miss out on that time, the person, all the other stuff, and the setback that it caused, I'm fortunate and glad at least that like, it's not like happening to other fighters and won't happen to myself again either.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because the bottom line is I make it look like you go to a window and they give you a check. And you're right. They're absolutely going to make you. It's going to turn into an ugly dog fight. It's not worth your time.
Sure.
You're at their will as well. Neil Magny, absolute pleasure. I mean, I think the last time I saw you was at one of my events. I think you even paid to get in, and I'm like, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I'm giving you a ticket. What are you doing here, Neil?" So I appreciate it, man. All the support you've given us in this region. Every time you step into the cage, you're representing, all of us here, and certainly makes me proud to watch somebody continue to get their hand raised on a big stage.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel the same way about someone from New York.
Yeah, there we go.
Deep dive is over. We got Neil Magny in the books. Mike, Lights Out podcast, trucking along here. Another fine interview, man. Neil, my hat's off to him. He's been through a lot too, huh? A lot of fun.
Well, what I like to do, Miguel, is find people that have either owed me like favors or people I've kind of communicated with and feel comfortable about getting them an interview, and then failing to tell them how long it was going to be. And Neil absolutely fell into that category. You can kind of see it towards the end. He's like, are we going through every fight in my career? So, I mean, we got through what we wanted. We got through all of the ones we wanted.
I mean, we don't, it'd be good to prep with the people, but we go into them pretty unscripted, because I mean, if you tell people we need 2 hours, then we probably wouldn't get any damn interviews. So anyway, but he's a gentleman too. He stuck with us, and he came with information and stuff. So I'm very happy, especially he's the generation after I used to promote and stuff like that. So you get a good feel for how things are evolving and changing. And I learned just as much from those podcasts as perhaps people learn from us in the older ones.
He's an absolute professional, and like, he's genuinely a nice guy. Like, you meet Neil in public, like, it's just genuine communication coming out of him. And the one thing that I applaud him for was that nice guy that he is. He didn't let it get in the way of making decisions for his own career. He always put his career first. And, he said, hey, I could have maybe handled it better with Fury and Hit Squad, who, we're going to be covering them again very soon in a few interviews. But he even said, yeah, I could have done it better. It didn't. They sent a guy at me to beat me. I beat the guy. Didn't bother me at all. I was a professional, went over wrestling. I admire a guy like Neil. Just kind of not let things bother him that normally people might freak out about.
Yeah, I like it. He was candid. He's a good guy, not used to lying, so we got a very honest interview.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Pro, please sign up. Sign your team up too. It's a federation. It's free. Sign your team up at ajptour.com. You can also register for the Chicago tournament, which is September 24th. I will be hosting it. Miguel, I think you've got something coming up with Anthony Pettis.
Yeah, you can look for Anthony Pettis' fighting championship coming out of Milwaukee on August 12th. I got to dabble in matchmaking again, got him a couple of guys helping to fill out the card there and getting to play in the new environment here. The main fights are on Fight Pass, so definitely getting to see some up and comers and young guys and getting my feet wet in the sport again. So I'm grateful to Anthony and Damien too for the opportunity. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. So like, share, subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot do this without you guys at home helping us out. The algorithms are brutal, and the only way we grow is if you help us. So whether it's a comment, like, share, subscribe, if you want to leave a review on iTunes, that's also greatly appreciated. Vegan Higgler, you are kicking ass, buddy. Appreciate all your comments.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.